The Earley Show is brought to you by our friends at Answering Legal. For more than a decade, attorneys have trusted Answering Legal's 24/7 virtual receptionist service to keep their phones covered and their clients cared for. Now, they're raising the bar with an AI-powered intake chatbot, live translation services in over 180 languages, and 76 seamless tech integrations. Answering Legal's goal? Make running a law practice simpler while helping you capture every new client opportunity. And don't worry, the receptionist team is still the best in the business at turning first-time callers into loyal clients. Find out what's possible by visiting answeringlegal.com. You'll find a link to the site in the description of this episode. Now, let's get to the show. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Earley Show, sponsored by our friends over at Answering Legal. I'm your host, Chris Earley, and as you know, on The Earley Show podcast, we always bring you the very best and brightest in the legal industry. And here today is a real treat. We got two guys that have already been on the show before, but they're so good, we're bringing them back, and we're having them both together on the call. We got Neal Goldstein, we got Steven Eichenblatt, two of my friends. We've bonded over our unique stories, and they're all very different, but they have a lot of shared elements. So we don't have an agenda. We're going to riff. We're going to give to you, the audience, as much value as we possibly can. So I'm just super grateful for your time, guys. Neal, if you don't mind, we start with you. For those who don't know Neal Goldstein, who the hell are you?
Sure. You're right. My mother used to say that. My name is Neal Goldstein. I'm an attorney. I've been practicing for about 35 years here in New York, Long Island. I'm a personal injury lawyer. I have two children. I have two books, these two books right here. I'm sure we'll talk about it. And I have a podcast, and I still practice law. So, yeah, we're ready to talk.
Very good. Thank you, Neal. Steve, introduce yourself, please, sir.
Sure. Yeah, I'm Steve Eichenblatt, and I've also been practicing, I think, 38 years now. So I beat Neal, and Chris is just a little baby. But I'm here in Orlando, Florida. I just do personal injury. I started out as an insurance defense lawyer. In my spare time, I try to manage my 5 kids and 2 ex-wives and 1 current wife who I love. So it's good. It's a good thing. And I also recently published a book, and I'm excited to talk with you guys. It's always fun.
Hey, Steve, are you sure you want to say that you manage your ex-wives?
Yeah. Well, I thought that was politically correct. I thought that was like
really?
A good way to,
okay.
I didn't. Yeah. No, they're good. It's all good.
Okay. All right. Cool.
I love it. So I'm telling you, we have, the three of us have been through a few rodeos. They're all different rodeos, but we have gone through challenges. And look at us, we run thriving PI practices. And so I just want to talk about, first I met Neal. Neal wrote his book, his memoir. And I said, who the hell is this guy, Neal Goldstein, on Long Island? And look how far we've come. Now we're friends. You inspired me to write my book. And then I was on Bill Umansky's podcast talking about my book when it came out. And then Steve heard me and he reached out to me. And now Steve and I are friends. And I introduced you guys, I believe.
Correct.
Said, hey, you guys got to meet each other. It's just funny how things work. But I just want to talk about, we're kind of in a different category because we've written memoirs about our struggles, our challenges, our successes. What inspired you guys to write your book? Why did you even do all that hard work in the first place?
Yeah, I think initially the idea was, I don't know, my mom left me a bunch of photographs and some furniture, not much money at all, believe me, and a lot of memories, and some that weren't that good. And I wanted to leave. Initially, my thought was, I'm going to leave something to my kids that was a bit more than that. I wanted to leave them something that they could understand and put the pieces together, why I might have been laughing in this picture and why I might have been angry here. And so, give them some background, which they may not otherwise have, and maybe give them the tools that I used in order to navigate a very sclerotic family world. And so that kind of morphed after I spoke to a number of people and said, well, why don't you write the book with the idea of letting other people who might have similar situations also in on your on your on how you navigated this difficult journey. And so that's what I did.
I love that. Thank you, Neal. Steve, why did you write your book?
Yeah, no, sort of like Neal, my biological father had passed away, and he left not just photographs, but it turned out he was a writer, and I do talk about this in my book. But he is a writer, and he wrote almost every day of his life between 1960 and 1990. He was a veterinarian, but was a writer, and I didn't know him while he was alive because he left me when I was very young, and so I decided I'd gone through a divorce, that I wanted to try to put things on paper. It started out um, more of a journaling session. And then I actually started to believe, I actually can write this story, and I'm a pretty good writer. And because for the first time in a long time, I was writing outside the legal boundaries. I was just putting whatever it is I wanted on paper. And that became really therapeutic for me. Just going through parts of my life that I hadn't really closely examined, and plucking out where some of the anger was still existing. And because the one thing about certainly one of the things that we all have in common, we've all overcome some significant childhood trauma
Correct.
and persevered. And so I wanted to share that story with people, because there's so many that we know that go through trauma, who decide that they're going to be victims and not do anything with their lives. And here are three guys who used that, to motivate themselves.
Yeah, for sure. I love that. Personally, I wrote mine because I felt the itch to write it. I just had to do it. So once you commit to it, you're kind of off to the races. The horse is out of the barn. It's going to get done.
Yeah.
So like I was saying, I wrote my memoir because I, like Neal, like Steve, just wanted to have a testament for my kids, have, a record of why dad is the way he is, the good parts about dad, the flawed parts about dad. But the common element, three of us have is, growing up around an element of dysfunction. Neal, you're a high school dropout, now you're an accomplished personal injury attorney, author. It's rare air that you've reached, notwithstanding, all your challenges. Steve, you had unimaginable cruelty in many ways, right? At the hands of the person you write about quite a bit in the book. So I just think we're really kind of nothing really unique about us. We just sort of like got through, right? And like just sort of like put our heads down and got through these difficult times. Why do you think you guys were able to succeed despite heavy childhood stuff?
I think for me, I think, and that goes to the core of the book, is that I was lucky enough to meet other people who embraced me. I was lucky enough to have other people who believed in me, who thought there could be a future for me when I didn't even know what the day was going to be like. And so, you know, I was an angry kid. I'm sure you guys know about that. And I was lost. I wasn't a bad kid like you guys. We weren't bad kids,
Right.
but we had no real male figure in our life that we could look up to. And that's common amongst, I think, the three of us. But we had, other people that reached out to us, whether it was a girlfriend or the other parent or a sibling that helped us in some way. Maybe it was an employer, whatever. And so, I think that if you're open to embracing other people, which I wasn't initially, but then I took a chance in one particular situation, and it worked out really well for me. And I just kept on doing that.
Part of it for me was I grew up with an adopted stepfather who was violent and mean in every way, and always told me I'd never amount to anything. And so for a long time, I just wanted to prove him wrong. Once I got past the defiance, and at a high school, I realized, he's calling me a loser. So part of my motivation, as weird as that sounds, is this horrible voice in my head saying, you'll never amount to anything. You'll never amount to anything. So that was certainly part of my motivation. And then I didn't really have a mentor. There wasn't anybody in my life that I could really turn to, because I wound up moving in a lot of different places. But when I lived in Israel, I recognized that the only person that was going to help me was me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's funny if I could just jump in. We all have important male figures that were absent early in our lives, but I think Steve was the only one that was actually able to see his father, his natural father. At some point, I don't think it worked out, but he was able to have some conversation at however menial it might have been. And yet, Chris, in your book, it took a really different turn. I don't want to give away things, but uh, you had these dreams almost with your father, and you and your father having these conversations, which I thought was a really cool way to have the reader understand your journey. I thought it was really, really cool.
Thank
I,
you.
on the other hand, also I think I saw my father once after he left. I saw him a couple of times. Then I saw him the next time, maybe 40 years later. And I don't know. It's just it's just very interesting. All three male figures absent, and we all had some. Well, not all, but the two of us had some real contact later on in life, which was in both cases meaningless in many ways. To some extent, Steve has some. It wasn't completely meaningless, and for Chris, it was not. I don't think you had that ability, right?
No,
Correct?
no,
Yeah,
yeah, no.
yeah,
Don't you guys think that the anger that you had from going through such a rough childhood and rough circumstances makes you a better personal injury lawyer? Like I think because you've gone through so much and now you're dealing with people who are going through certain things.
I think it gives you credit, like instant street cred. Like, here's my book. I'm an open book. Read my story and how challenged it's been, and I've had to get through. So I can relate to you as being involved in an accident. I don't know what it's like to be in the accident with you, but yeah, I think that it's like an equalizer. I was trying to like getting on client's level. Like, what better
yeah.
way to get on client's level? Hey, like, I understand struggle. I'm not some hoity-toity lawyer up in an ivory tower. I speak the language of resilience. So
And I think I might have said to both of you that it's almost like a force multiplier.
yeah,
That you have these assets, which we could now call them. You have these assets. We wouldn't call that back then. We would just want a new father or new parents, whatever the case is. But you have assets now that the next person, while they might be a good lawyer and they might be, have feelings for other people, there's no way that they can feel what we feel unless you've been through that. And so, yes, it does give you that extra oomph
yeah.
when you're dealing with people. By the way, I'm still angry. Uh,
Yeah.
there's parts of me that there are days that I still am resentful after 25 years of therapy.
I was going to ask you guys about that. Thank you, Neal. Steve, do you feel like you're still angry? How do you feel in general?
Um, I definitely still have anger in me. There's no question about that.
Is that why the police are coming?
Yeah, exactly. Something
All
must
right.
happen. We're right near the hospital. We're personal injury lawyers, so we got
Yeah,
to be close. Got to be
yeah,
on it.
yeah.
But I definitely still have anger, and my wife says you get wild eyes or whatever. But one of the things and for those who might be listening that want to or considering writing a memoir, I know, like for me, I realized that there were things in my life that I was much angrier about than I thought. Like, for example, we moved from New Jersey to Florida my senior year of high school, and man, as I was writing this book, 40 years later, I'm like, that really sucked, man. I
Right.
am really angry about that. And there's no one for me to talk to about it. But so there's certainly things that still, are still inside.
And then I'll leave. Maybe they dull a little bit, but we can all relate to that residual anger. I've talked openly. I meditate a lot. I journal, start doing a little bit of yoga, always trying to find a little softener. to that.
Right.
But I
Right.
almost feel like we have an unfair advantage. You talk about the force multiplier, which is awesome. It's almost like an unfair advantage. So you could look at guys like us, oh, like poor them. It's like, no, like those were in
Right.
retrospect, it was all meant to be. Unfortunately,
Right.
that was our plot in life, to struggle early.
Yeah.
But then we were able to, I know we work really hard because we have a certain DNA of getting over. I don't know if a lot of lawyers have that, to be honest with you. So I embrace that competitive advantage. It's almost unfair because, like,
But you know what? I think you said to me, Chris, on our podcast, I think it was Grit by Angela Duckworth.
yeah,
And I didn't get a chance to read the entire book, but I read some of it. And apparently the thesis is, correct me if I'm wrong, that a disproportionate amount of successful people had one thing in common. That was grit. Now,
yeah,
that could be defined differently, right? But they all felt something inside of them that said, I have to show them, or I have to do this because this happened to me. Some kind of grit that you're not born with grit. You might be in some cases, but I don't think you are. I think it evolves based on early experiences.
Yeah, I think too. Like when you talk about grit, what's interesting is, now I don't know if any of you guys are like scholarly law review, graduated with honors kind of
No,
guys,
no.
but I certainly wasn't. I mean, we're fighters from day one,
Yeah,
really,
yeah,
and that inside certainly, that certainly creates the grit that helps. And I have learned since then that I've talked to so many lawyers who have contacted me and had similar stories, and most of them are personal injury lawyers or criminal lawyers that
interesting.
they're not corporate guys sitting there. They're um, I think our practice kind of goes along with how we grew up.
Absolutely, yeah.
I love that. I hope that we inspire, because there's a lot of people on this call that can relate to what we're talking about. We're not that unusual, right? We just talk about it and we've published about it. But there's a lot of guys and gals who can relate. I mean, everyone has struggle, coming up. I'd like to ask you guys, like, what do you think your dads would think about your success right now? I think my dad would be like, holy shit, like, are you shitting me? Like, I can't believe what you did. I'm a humble dude. I'm not bragging. I think he'd be like, wow, like, good for you. What do you guys think your dads would think about what you guys did with your life?
Oh boy, that's a tough one.
It's a great question.
Uh,
It is.
Well, I could tell you when I saw my father when my son was 3. My son is now 30. I saw him one time in those 40 years or whatever. It was just, excuse my language, but he effing thought that it was like there was nothing. I mean, it was like it was just weird. And like he said to his then third wife, he said, "Look at my son; he's a lawyer." And I'm thinking, yeah, but you had no part in that. There was nothing that you did that. What do I think? I think, honestly, I think he'd probably want to take credit for it.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I don't. Would he be happy? Yeah, because he felt as though he created that. And so that's the type of mentality that he had. I don't think he would sit there and say, "Oh, I did so many bad things and I abandoned you. I absconded from the house." I don't think he would say any of that. But, I mean, that's all guessing, right?
Yeah.
That's such a great question, Chris. And I really, I hadn't thought that before, because, I have such a bad opinion of my, kind of 2 fathers, one adopted, one biological. But I don't think it would mean anything to my adopted father, because, he was the one that was always putting me down, and I don't think he would ever give anybody credit for anything. So, and my biological father, I think inside he would be proud, but I don't think he would ever say it, because he could have said it and he never did. So, that's kind of how. What do you think?
Like I said, I think my dad would. I hope he'd be proud. But like Neal said, he didn't have anything to do with this. His biological son, but like he didn't put me through school. He didn't provide. So totally, not only not almost like a liability. I'm sorry to say it, but no assisting, no asset into my life. It was just more like suppressing. His absence was a suppressor. Hey everyone, it's Chris. If you ever have a personal injury case here in Massachusetts that you can't take on, or just want to refer out to a trusted firm, my team and I would love to work with you. Since 2004, I've only practiced personal injury law, and my team and I pride ourselves on handling referrals with transparency, good communication, and care for your client. And if you're not already getting it, head on over to practicetipoftheweek.com practicetipoftheweek.com to join my free email list. It goes out to hundreds and hundreds of lawyers each and every week with actionable marketing and practicing tips. Thanks for listening. I look forward to collaborating with you. I want to share listening to you guys talk, I'm thinking, I want to share two things, very brutally, honestly. Neal's book, as I said, impacted me so much. I was like, God damn, I got to write my own book. Okay. So when my book came out, I read Steve's book. I was outside of my hammock. Truth be told, I listened to your book because Steve's book is like fat,
Oh yeah.
And
I wasn't expecting that.
No, and I was crying on my hammock listening to it. I was trying to hide the tears. My wife was in the house, right behind me. The stories of Richard is just it's brutal. And I can't, I can't imagine what that was like. Unreal. I use the word cruelty, man. Like it's all I can think of.
But when I read Steve's book, I was angry at Richard. There's no question. There's no defense of whatever sickness, mental illness that he portrayed. But I was also angry at his mother. I'm sorry, Steven, but I was.
No, it's of course.
And I'm sure you had feelings about that.
Oh yeah. Oh no, that's come up quite a bit. Last week I had the fortune of being actually invited to speak up at Chapel Hill to a group of family lawyers. It's a special group that gets together.
That's very nice.
It was really great. It was incredible. And they had all read my book. So one of the person who runs the section had got my book somewhere, and he liked it so much he decided to invite me to speak about it.
That's very nice.
There's a couple of months back, and it was there's a little bit of like imposter syndrome. You walk in, everybody's man, that book was great, and and it's hard I'm not good at taking compliments, but several of them said that they had been like really emotional when they were reading it, or tearful, and I said to one of the women, like, that probably means something resonates inside with what I wrote. Something resonates with you, and you probably need to get it out.
So that was a group of lawyers, you said, right?
Group of lawyers, right.
So like Richard, who told you wouldn't amount to shit, right? And then here you are talking about your book, your memoir, in front of a very accomplished room. Like that's crazy, man. That's and that's why you wrote the book, to share.
Right.
Yeah, that's right.
That's exactly why you wrote it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
To help.
And that's the other asset that I think that the three of us have, because people there are lots of people that have lots of stories, some worse than ours.
Yes.
And yet they don't have the ability, for one reason or another, to be able to share that. Either they're depressing it, or they're just embarrassed. They don't really know how to say it. But the fact that we can not only speak about it, but write a book which anybody in the world can see.
Yep.
And they're not very nice things in there about one of our parents.
Right.
And to be able to do that, and that was a struggle for me when I was writing. How much am I going to reveal here?
Yep.
And even though I did keep a few things that had to do with my kids out, but I felt like if I was going to be true to the book, I had to put more in than out.
Steve, how'd you feel about that exercise challenge?
Yeah. I mean, I think, as far as what to put in and what not to, I wanted to make sure that my book, if my kids read it, that they weren't affected. So I didn't write anything about, my divorces, because we've all led multiple lives, and I went through a couple divorces. And, and I get along fine with my ex-wives. As I mentioned, it wasn't always like that, but I didn't want to go into that because that would just hurt them.
Right.
And I wanted to be respectful. But on the other side, when you mentioned my mother, when I went to the family law group, and going to a group where they've all read the book, which was really interesting.
Wow. Yeah.
Because you can always tell when somebody's read or not read the book. They may
Sure.
say they have,
Sure.
but you can tell.
Yeah,
But
easily,
but
yes.
there were many questions about what my mother was doing, and how I felt about her, and and she's my mother, so I'm trying to be a good Jewish son, so and be there for her, but I still, parts of me hates her. Really, part of me does.
Wow. Wow.
And I can understand. I don't know what that's like, but I can see why you feel. I mean, you have a right to feel that way. How is this? The irony is that we all became fathers, right? We didn't have a healthy, high functioning family environment in many ways. We still became fathers, right? Really successful fathers at that, which isn't hard to do because I didn't see the blueprint, right? Like us, like both of you. There was no playbook that was given like this is how you be a healthy dad. I didn't witness that. Didn't witness healthy marriage, right? So I've had to do this sort of on the fly, right? And figure stuff out. But it's really like I don't know what you guys think personally, but I think I'm on this earth. I know it to be a dad. That's why I'm here. That's like my whole living, my purpose. How is your struggles early on? How did that impact the father you would become?
Yeah. I mean, I always say that, bringing up my kids was, and I get very emotional. So if I get emotional, I apologize.
Oh, do your
That's
thing.
just, that's part of who I am. Uh, bringing up my kids was some of the best moments in my life. And I really tried, and I think I was there for most of the important things in their lives. And at this point, one is 30 and the other one is 23. I probably have spent most of my time with them already.
Mm-hmm.
Most of my time has already been spent with them. And I don't, if I was on my last day, I wouldn't have any regrets about the time that I spent with them. I, in fact, probably, unlike many other people that I know, lawyers and non-lawyers, who spend so much time, and I'm not making a judgment, just
Right.
saying what I've done, and put so much effort into their work, and maybe they're successful, maybe they're not, but took away from their time with their kids. I did the opposite. I spent as much time as possible with my kids, maybe to the sacrifice of my practice at some points, but no regrets, no regrets. And yeah, am I perfect? No, but I think my kids would look at me and say that I'd like to think that they would say I was a great dad, but
That's
Yeah,
great, Neal. Thank
it
you so
depends. It depends what day it is.
yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
that's right.
amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think, and not having a great role model for a dad, I think in some ways I was too easy, like, because I wanted to do everything with the kids and for the kids because I didn't have the opportunity to have my own experience with my own father. So, I coached Little League, I coached soccer, I spent so much time with my kids. I sort of forgot about my wife, and that was part of my marital issue because I was my oldest son he had some special needs growing up. He was sort of a maniac, and he caused a lot of stress. But I spent a ton of time with him, and I have 5 kids. But I really like you said, Chris and Neal, like that's the most important thing. And one of the things, and so I still try to be in contact with my kids every day. I I have in my office. You guys can appreciate this. I went to a Bruce Springsteen concert with 3 of my sons, and long story very short, they do a lottery because we were on the floor, and my crazy son was the first one picked to go into the arena, and even though he had showed up late, anyway, we go in and there's there's these three boys, my three sons, right against the stage, and I was just, and one of my sons is a musician, but I was getting tearful because they were just in awe right
Yeah.
there. Springsteen
Right.
was paying
Right.
attention to
Right.
he's got these
Right.
three little kids in the front row.
Wow.
And
Wow.
so watching my kids get that kind of joy,
Yeah.
that to me meant everything.
I love
Yeah.
it. That's
Wow,
cool.
that's great.
Yeah. This one moment in time, but massive, right? Massive, big moment. That's awesome.
You know, by the way,
Yeah.
Chris, it's funny when you're talking and Steve is talking, you could see, everybody's head shaking,
Yeah.
like,
Totally.
obviously we all have, similar, even though the stories are different, and they are, there's just a common thread all the way through.
A strong one. There's no question.
Yeah.
There's no
Yeah.
question about
Yeah.
that. So when you guys released your book, how did it change? How did you? Well, let me backtrack. How did you get it out to the masses? Right, you could write a book. That's wonderful. But if no one reads it, what's the point? How did you guys push it out so it got open and got pushed out there to the world?
Steve, you want to go first?
Sure. Yeah. No, man, that's like the hardest. I thought writing the book was hard, but getting people to buy it's a whole nother story. And listen, I like sharing my story so to help other people. And I didn't have this expectation I'm going to have some massive bestseller, but we're lawyers, man, and we're pushers, and we're competitive. And so it was, I did a lot of work before the book release. I read a lot about book launches. I actually have a publisher who had a publicist, so I was able to use a publicist for a few months. That got me on some podcasts, and I have the advantage. One of my sons does social media, so he did some videos for me, and I had lined up a lot of people in advance to do Amazon reviews, because I think that's a huge part is Amazon reviews before, so that by the time it launched, in the first week, I had a really good number of reviews, and the book was starting to get out, a little bit. And one of the other things I did too, which, for people that are out there that might want to write a book, is you've got to show it to other people before you publish it to see, okay, does this suck or is this incredible? Like, you got to get some. And my daughter's a writer in California. And so I during the writer's strike, ironically, I asked her if she could line up like 5 friends, and I would pay them to read the book and give me an independent review, because they didn't know me. And so that was really helpful, because I got some great feedback. I mean, honest, great feedback. And that I changed that, and so I put a lot of time into the launch and the marketing and the cover. Like, both you guys have great book covers, very cool. And I put a lot of time into our cover, but it's a journey, man.
Yeah. Yeah. It's I don't know. I think the first thing I knew from, off the top of my head, I says, well, I'm self-publishing this. And I was very happy to have the publisher that I did, even though it was a self-publishing company. They were fairly well known. And I asked a number of people in our legal circle if they would read the book and then give me a review. And they did. And many of them gave me really nice reviews. And so they put that out on social, and that was very helpful, and that was very nice. We did a book launch party at a really nice hotel not far from where I live, and invited a bunch of people, and the word got out from there. And yeah, I'd say the first 2 months was really, it went from the people that I knew and were going to get the book to other people who I didn't know and got the book. In fact, I'll just pat myself on the back here. I got, because I like doing that. I got an email. I got an email from a young lady who I met during John Fisher's mastermind class in Chicago, because I went out for a drink. I think it was afterwards or something. And I was sitting at the bar by myself, and I just started talking to her. She was, she tended bar. We were just chatting. And I says, well, I'm going to leave you, my book. I don't have it with me, but I'll leave it for you tomorrow. And I did. I dropped the book by. She wasn't in. 3 years later, she sends me an email. She says, I just want you to know how you changed my life.
Really?
That I went back to school. I became a paralegal, and now I'm thinking about law school. And having read your book, it was so significant in motivating me to move forward. And if I could just take one more minute, the real moment, and this has a lot to do with, putting my book out there. I got a call within a week after the book was out from somebody that I knew, but it was more my wife's friend, and had nothing to do with the law. She had, I didn't really know her well. And she said, Neal, I just want you to know that I read your book, and her significant other and her were going out for dinner, and they were going to talk about the relationships that they have and how they could build even more relationships based on my book. And when I heard that, I felt really, really satisfied. I said, now I understand why I wrote it. And, you try to put it out there as much as you can. Every time I meet a new client, or I give them a book, I let them take a look at it. And they're always pretty impressed. Now, obviously, their lawyer wrote a book, and now they have it, and that's great. Many of the people read it, and I get feedback from them. I try to keep it top of mind as much as I can. It's still out there, so that's pretty much how I distributed the books.
That's awesome.
How long, Neal? How long has your book been out? The first one
since 2022.
Got it.
2022.
And you actually have two.
You wrote a second book, right?
I wrote a second book. Yeah, that wasn't a memoir. It was just some practical advice to personal injury lawyers.
I bought it. It's excellent. I liked it.
I believe you said a second book took off or sold more.
Well, the second book took off because I published it through Amazon, and so it was a lot less expensive to publish, and it was practical advice. So that might attract more people than, hey, here's my memoir, and there's some stuff in here that you might want to look at and find out about yourself. These are real practical tips. So I guess, I definitely did much better in the first 6 months of that than my first book in terms of actual numbers, however you want to define that.
Yeah, for sure.
What about you?
Chris? I didn't hire, you guys did a little more professional way. I hired a coach, and that was about it. And then she enlisted a line editor, a copy editor, all the editors, But I would encourage, I want us to share some tips to the aspiring author, the lawyer, the artist, whoever's listening, right, and wants to write their book. My advice would be get a coach. And also, who are you writing the book for? Because Steve, you mentioned you're a writer. I'm not a writer. I can't write for shit.
Yeah.
And so I had to learn to write creatively. My coach kept saying you have to learn to write to show rather than write to tell. And so Steve, Neal, what you just said about getting those messages about your book, isn't it funny how some people it's crickets. They read the book, they don't even mention it. Where some people are like, holy shit, I was crying. You have moved me. It's like it hits as minority super hard. But most people are like, oh yeah, they don't even mention it. But that's why you wrote it, for that that impact on that select few. But that's my advice. Get a coach, know who you're writing for. Don't cheap out. I wrote my book on my own. My coach said, this is she's like, love it, Chris. This is shit. We're going to rewrite this thing. I'm like, oh my God, I thought I had a book. I had to rewrite it. I could take some parts, but it's basically starting from scratch. She was like, because we're going to write an actual book. That's my 2 cents for the aspiring author who's never been down this path. What would you guys say to that guy or gal wanting to write their memoir who has that itch like we had?
I tell you, I would say, for whoever's thinking about doing it, is just get it down, just sit down and just start typing, writing, whatever it is. Don't worry about grammar. Don't worry about sentence structure, any of that stuff the first time through. Just let your brain wander to the places it takes you, because it is incredible how when you start writing and you get into it, there's stuff, and it makes me laugh, Chris, because I've said this, like, you'll write, like I would write every morning, and then maybe I'd come back the next day and I'd look and I'd say, God, man, that is really terrible. I can't believe I wrote that. It's embarrassing. Or other things, like I'd read it, go, man, did I write that? I said, man, that's good. So, you just get it down on paper. You just gotta, you just don't stop. Don't stop and worry about, periods and commas at the beginning.
Love it, man.
You must have been sitting right next to me, because I was saying the same stuff. No, it's true. And the thing that I would say to anybody, and I think, Chris, you and I talked about this when we first talked, because I initially hired somebody who was going to write it for me as I spoke about it. Bad move. I wasted 3 days in Michigan with that.
Oh, boy.
And I was very upset at myself. And then I called John Fisher, and he said, and I'm giving him the credit here, he says, Neal, you have to write it yourself.
Yeah.
And I said, oh, shit. Because, I mean, and so I, honestly, it was just before COVID, then into COVID, I would be sitting at the public library, and I would just shut down for 4 hours when I could do it.
Yeah.
And it was cathartic, but do it yourself.
Yes.
Do it yourself, because it won't sound the same, no matter how professional or how good somebody is. It won't be the same.
Don't use AI. That's going to
Don't use AI. Yeah, that's true. That's true. That's true.
It's AI is crazy. It's a crazy tool.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. You can write like 5 books in one afternoon, probably,
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Yep.
Steve, any tips you can give to the aspiring writer who wants to do it?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, just, if you're really interested in doing it, like I'm a runner, I've done a bunch of marathons, half marathons, all that. And so I kind of approached it the same way I did with my running. Is I'd set my schedule, and I would sit for, 2 hours, get up really early, because I'm really good in the morning. And I would, for like 2 hours every day, I would try to write a chapter a week. So, and then, the other thing, I did like a writing workshop. And what was great about that was I met other people. Like, it'd be like being in a writing workshop with you guys, we could talk about writing. Cause I gotta say, like, at the beginning, I was embarrassed to tell anybody. I was, I didn't tell anybody I was writing this like vulnerable memoir. Here it is. Because I was like, you've got, at some point you have to expose yourself, and you're putting yourself out there. And I'm not really great with criticism. So, it's like, and I don't like being wrong, because I'm a lawyer. So, but anyway, so yeah, don't be afraid to go to workshops, to share your work, set a schedule and stick to it.
Just do the work. You got to want to do the work. It's hard as hell.
Yeah.
It's also one of my biggest accomplishments.
Same here. Same here. Yeah.
It's a massive.
Same here.
Most books don't get finished, and we finish that line, of getting it. And we're busy lawyers. We got a lot going on. We got people, all over us wanting stuff, and you had to intentionally set that time apart. I'm curious, as we wrap up, I want to hear how you guys weave it into your practice. Personally, I think I've mentioned to you guys, I send it to every single new client. They get it in a box with, amongst other things, but I want them to know who I am. Frankly, I want them to know, like, who they just hired. I'm not going to front and be, stiff. I'm going to be who I am. What do you guys do with your clients and, sharing it with them?
Well, I could tell you that when I meet a client, the first thing I say to them, I don't even talk about the accident. The first thing I say to them is, tell me something about yourself. And they do. And then they're kind of thrown for a minute, but they do. And inevitably, something in the next, that 15 or 20 minute stretch, sometimes it's longer, there's something we have in common. And then that leads me to say, well, I'd like you to know something about the person you're about to hire. And so I give them the short version, of course, of the story, or part of the story that I think they most would like to hear, just from listening to their story. And so, and often I have the books in my trunk, and I give them a copy of the book, and they love it, and it's 10 times better than a business card. And it just gives you some credibility in a world where there's so much effing noise. You now have some standing with them.
You're legit. It's not right. No, it's not a business card. You got a book. It's not just a book. It could be a book on anything. It's a book about
You.
so screwed up.
Yes.
With all respect, you guys, we all are. And however, we use that for
Correct.
good.
Correct. Correct.
Correct.
Yeah.
We shared it with the world. I love that. I love it.
So I'm gonna go off the topic for 1 second. I wanted to show you in my office. I don't know if you could see this, but can you see that, the Bruce Springsteen photo? Can you guys see that?
A little
there
bit.
we go.
A little bit. Yeah.
Let's see how we get that. Anyway, that's my Bruce Springsteen, the kids at the Bruce Springsteen concert that I was just telling you. It sits in my office.
Very cool. Very cool.
That's awesome.
April 24th, 2008. That's how long ago that was.
Wow.
And then the other thing I'm doing is, and again, I don't know how to turn my phone around, but I don't know if you guys can read any of this, but I'm doing an author meet and greet at the Jewish Community Center with another writer.
That's awesome.
Jay Fraxatis.
Oh, I think you told me about this. Yeah.
That's cool, man.
And I'm nervous about it because, this is going to be, it's you're putting yourself out of the comfort zone. You're putting yourself out of your comfort zone, and it's easy for me to get up and talk about a case or to talk about Neal or Chris, but to talk about myself, and then in front of I don't know how many people we're going to get, but probably a few hundred. And
wonderful.
I think, and that's and that when you talk about incorporating in the firm, I have not given my book to many clients yet. I probably will. It just, and I think I talked to Chris about this. Like I know because I knew he did it. I have, since you and I spoke about it, have been much more liberal about giving books to people that are helping me, or I thought have some in my car that that might enjoy it, and so, but I do plan on doing a little bit more marketing with it. So like this event, this author meet and greet, for example, my law partner, Greg Page, is going to be the facilitator. So, and that's great for us because it's him and it's me. And then we have a guy who's a mediator who wrote a bestseller, a legitimate bestseller, and has another book coming out. And I found out that he had just released a new book. So, I got him to do this with me, and he's a chatterbox, so it should be good.
That's awesome.
That's great. That's great.
It was cool for me. I got my book into a couple libraries around here, and when the book came out, when it first got into this one library, my daughter, I was like, "Let's go look for Dad's book," and she found it. I recorded her reaction. Like
I saw that, man. That's awesome.
That's great.
That's the whole deal. Like that's winning dad life for me. Like I'm good. Like no matter what happens, like just like showing up and like showing that you can do hard things.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
That was cool.
Absolutely.
Your kids are nice and young. They're at that like impressionable age.
Right.
My kids, trying to get them interested in my story is a little hard.
Of course, different stages, but I'm right behind you, man. Right behind you.
Yeah, that's great. That's great.
I love that. Well, guys, I appreciate you. How can people get in touch with you guys? We got such, powerhouse stories on this call. Let's get the conversation going. How can people get in touch with you guys?
Well, for me, I mean, there's a million ways. So I'll just tell you to go to Google and just type Neal Goldstein lawyer, and I think you'll be fine. You'll find me somewhere. Just look at the face. It's same face. You'll find it.
I mean, for me, it's StevenScottEichenblatt.com. EICHENBLATT. There's not a lot of Steven Scott Eichenblatts out there, so there's probably a few more Goldsteins.
A few more.
Or Amazon. My book is called Pretend They Were Dead, and you can take a look at that. So I'm excited because I'm over 200 reviews now. So
wow,
that's great.
Good for you.
That's great. Good for you.
That's like 2,000 reviews. That's a lot. That's really
right.
It's a lot,
great.
man. I wish it was 2,000 sales. Well, actually, I'm not exactly sure how many sales we had, but it helps. At least 200.
That's great.
Your book came out in the summer, right? Of last year, of 25.
Father's Day, June.
That's great. That's great. Wow. Good for you. Congratulations.
Guys,
Thank
I
you.
appreciate your time. Thanks for being,
Chris.
thanks for being,
Chris.
friends and people that, speak my language. I get that. There's a lot of people on this call. They get this. They speak our language of resilience and getting over. So reach out to any of us. We're literally, as I said, open books here. We're here to help you because we've had a few rodeos. We're happy to share any of our knowledge. So, gentlemen, thank you so much. Nothing but love and respect for you guys.
Thank you very much.
All right, guys. That's it for this episode of The Earley Show. Be sure to check out more episodes of our show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and the Answering Legal YouTube channel.